Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Joining us as always, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm, the Waldorf to my Statler, or the Statler to my Waldorf. I don't know which one it is.
I don't know. You're the tall. You're the tall one.
I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, man. I guess I'm the tall one, right? So I'm not even sure which one that is. Oh my goodness. All right. So we've got a few things to discuss today. And I think the first thing we're going to get to the Democrats struggling to find a leader and a purpose, which is your VIP column, because there's some interesting news about that over the weekend. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening tomorrow night, or as this will probably go up on Tuesday. So tonight, Donald Trump makes a triumphant return to a joint session of Congress. Don't call it a State of the Union address. It's not officially that, but it's a address to the joint session of Congress. What are you expecting to hear? I'm expecting a lot of triumphalism myself, just knowing Donald Trump.
Exactly. A lot of triumphalism, and I don't know whether he'll probably take the offensive against Zelensky, but I hope not. But I think
that's an unfortunate situation.
Fair to say that Zelensky will not be in the gallery.
No, I don't think he'll be in the gallery. I don't think he'll be in the United States at the time, and unless one of the Democrats invites him. But I don't think that would work out very well. I think that would make matters worse. And I think maybe Democrats are starting to figure that out, that this was not necessarily a good thing. You know, this whole thing with Zelensky anyway is like there's an air of unreality to this, right? With, Europe saying, well, we'll support him. We'll support him. With what? You don't produce the armament and you don't have the logistics. But other than that, you guys are in great shape.
Yeah. Well, the German, I don't know how to say it, but the German arms company, they've started a plant in Ukraine, and they've been turning out a lot. The Czechs, I think, have a very active arms industry. But
not at the level needed, right?
Okay, but what did Trump have in mind about Europe stepping up? I mean, Europe, especially Britain, has said they're going to do more. They're going to spend more on defense. Trump told them that during the first term, and seemed to threaten that he might leave NATO. And a lot of them did start spending more. And I don't remember the numbers now, but a large majority of NATO members, 33 now, I think, are now either at or rapidly approaching the 2% promise on spend of GDP on defense. Britain says they're going to go up to 3%, which is interesting to me because it's a Labour prime minister. I mean, Britain is our best friend, and we should treat them that way. They're treating Trump that way with an unprecedented second state visit. Britain knows how to treat him, and there's a lot of sucking up going on, which is fine. That's, everybody has their own needs, and those are his. Those are Trump's, and the Europeans, many of them have read that. Zelensky obviously does not. And I gather he was goaded to be confrontational, which was a malicious act on the part of his coaches.
I'm not even sure what the point of that was, other than I think that there are people here domestically that wanted to score some points on Trump, but I don't think that went very well at all. I don't know if you saw the Harry Enton piece from CNN. I think it was this morning, or may have been late yesterday, showing that actually Donald Trump is scoring better than Biden is on Ukraine. People trust his his take on it, their trust,
Mhm.
his approach to it. And that poll was taken before the blow up with Zelensky.
Oh,
But I mean, he's always been skeptical about going forward with this. He's always been open about being skeptical about going forward with this. So yeah, I think he got advised poorly in this.
Zelensky.
Zelensky, yeah, Zelensky. And there's
Yeah,
we
and
talked about this.
and
There's
there may
criticism
have
on both
been
sides. So.
the confrontation. Actually, was helpful, I think, politically for both of them to stand up to the big bully who's threatening to sell you out to Russia, and Trump demonstrating in public, or being forced to demonstrate, that his skepticism, and Vance being the loyal Pancho, is standing up for his partner.
No, I think so too. So I am sure it's going to come up in the speech. He's going to talk about the fact that he wants peace, and that until everybody in this equation is ready for peace, then there's no point in being involved in conflict, period, end of story. I'm sure that's going to be his argument. He'll make it on his usual terms.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the story of the moment. But I also think he's going to come back and do a lot of crowing over the success he's had on the border. Did you see this data from
Yeah.
CBS over the weekend?
Wasn't that something?
I,
Jeez.
I actually did an editorial piece for Salem Radio News. I do this all the time. I do it every week on this, but I did it this week on this topic. Donald Trump, in 6 weeks, exposed 4 years worth of lies from Democrats about border security. Because
Yeah.
what was it that he claimed, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris claimed the reason why they had a border crisis? What was the reason that they gave?
What?
Oh, okay. I thought I would get you. I
I'm
thought I'd
sorry.
get
I
you to
didn't.
play
I didn't
Jeopardy.
know. I didn't realize that was up to me. It's just seeking asylum.
Well, I mean, they were claiming, and this is during the campaign, right? Kamala Harris, Joe Biden said it first, and Kamala Harris came back and said it during the debate, right? Well, the reason why we have this crisis is because Donald Trump torpedoed the compromise bill that we were putting together, and said compromise bill was the only way that we were going to be able to secure the border, because it had X number of additional border patrol agents and blah 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 blah. Well, Donald
He didn't.
Trump
Yeah.
fixed this
Didn't get
problem in
more.
6 weeks.
Didn't get and shut it down. Yeah.
Yeah, took him 6 weeks. He had the lowest number of cross-border apprehensions by the Border Patrol, who's out there really looking for these people, by the way, in 25 years. This is an even better record than his first term. That's how far down the flood has come, because once Trump got elected, they all said, oh, hell, this is going to get serious, and maybe this isn't a good time to try to cross the border. And that's exactly what's been happening.
Yeah.
They've been deporting people. I think that there was something around, I think that they're around, I don't know, I think it's in 6 figures now, the deportations. There was a claim out today. I have to go back and look. Is it high 5 figures or low 6 figures that they've already deported? And that they're Tom Homan's going to go to Congress and ask for $150 billion to start accelerating that process and really start shipping people out. And the word has gone out. And I think Donald Trump's going to take a huge victory lap on that.
I think you're absolutely right, and he should. I mean, the what strikes me is the depth of dishonesty, deceit, and lying on the Democrats' part, led by Biden. I mean, it's overwhelming, and you have to. I guess you have to believe that they knew that someday they would be exposed, but they don't care, because it's 10 million plus more sympathetic potential Democrat voters.
Well, yeah, but I mean, and again, I mean, I
He's
think
not going. We're not going to um, deport even a large percentage of them. I mean, 10 million. There were already 11 million before that, and we're not, I mean, it's going to be great. Any of them that are gone, but I think we're stuck with them for decades, and the costs for local communities are just astronomical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is this whole thing with the, the measles outbreak, right? RFK came out this weekend, said, go get vaccinated.
Yeah,
It was interesting, you know,
yeah, yeah.
um, kind of fulfilled his promise. He was going to promote,
Follow follow the science.
he was going to follow the science. So good for him on that. Um, but, I just think that I think he's going to show up and, these speeches are all kind of the same. They're basically reworked campaign speeches. All four of Donald Trump's were that way. All four of Joe Biden's were that way, especially Barack Obama's. The last one, and you and I have talked about this a number of times, the last one of any significance was George W. No, besides being the laundry list of what I wants, was the 2002 State of the Union address, in which the first half of it was really about American readiness for the war on terror. And it was inspiring. It was really out of the ordinary, the first half.
Yeah, yeah,
Then George W. Bush said, okay, let's get down to business. Here's what I want from you guys
yeah,
on
yeah.
everything else. And then it became a standard State of the Union address. I mean, this is going to be that sort of thing. I'm kind of curious as to what you think his asks are going to be in this. What do you think are going to be his biggest asks?
Oh, more money for whatever he wants. But I, where does all this money come from? I mean, the causes. I used to cover education, and everything that was proposed in education cost a lot of money, and most of the ideas were good. So it was hard to argue against them. And then once they got started, they became their own living, breathing constituency for more money. But where does this come from? 10 billion here, or extra 150 million there. I we just print it up, I guess. And the danger, I think, and I think the commentators tomorrow night will point this out, except on C-SPAN, which is unfiltered, Ed, by the way,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about that too.
um, is the polls are beginning to indicate, it's not significant yet, but it will be, unhappiness over prices not coming down, which Trump can't really do anything about. Inflation ticked up in January just a little bit, which is ominous, but it's not gonna. If we spend 5 trillion more like Biden did, I guess it will get back up to Jimmy Carter levels, but or Joe Biden levels. But I think he should be careful about talking about a lot of spending, because people are worried about their own spending and they're having to spend too much of it.
Well, I think so too. And the whole Doge thing is about reducing spending, right? Reducing especially unnecessary spending. And so I think
Yeah.
you don't want to necessarily step on your own message, your own Doge message, right? By asking for more spending in the middle of all these cuts. And I think his argument is going to be, I don't need to ask for more spending. I think his big one was probably his biggest ask is probably going to be the tax cut, making the tax
Yeah,
cut permanent. He's
yeah.
going to say, if you don't do this, you're going to pass the largest tax hike on Americans in history, which is true. And
Going to allow the largest tax hike.
it's true. It would be a
Yeah,
default, but yes, yeah, exactly. And so I think that's going to be one of his biggest asks. I think
you're right.
military readiness is going to be another big one. He's going to have all the asks. Again, it's a non-SOTU SOTU. It's going to be a SOTU.
Not so.
Just live with it. I hate these things. I will be live blogging it along with my team right here at hotair.com. But I mean, honestly, I'm just going to say this really quickly and get it out of the way. This is an imperial procession that is an affront to any self-respecting, self-governing republic. That's not a, I'm not saying that on a partisan basis because I complain about it bitterly with Republicans and Democrats alike. This thing should be a letter delivered to Congress and let Congress read it aloud on the floor. That's the way that these Thomas Jefferson had it right. Damn it, Woodrow
No,
Wilson screwed it all up.
yeah, Woody screwed it up, and he was a professor who liked to talk in front of a class, large crowds, and so he brought it back in. And then, of course, once radio and then television came in, there's no way. It's a zombie event in government now. You can't kill it.
All right, we got to get to your column here because I teased it at the very beginning. We got to talk about this because Politico had something on this, I think last night or early this morning. Reeling
Oh,
from
they're always following me.
Of course they are.
What can I say?
Yeah, they're stalking you. They want to date you, right? Isn't that the AOC thing? These guys are so obsessed with me. They must want to date me. Yeah, that's it, sugar.
That's it, sugar. That's a great line. Yeah, remember that great line in Butch Cassidy? You just you just keep thinking, Butch. That's what you're good at.
Oh yeah, that is a great line. You're right.
Think you used enough dynamite there?
A lot of great lines in that movie. There were a lot of lines in that movie. Reeling from Hurricane Trump, Democrats struggled to find a leader and a purpose. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Chris Murphy's trying to do this right now.
Yeah.
The senator from Connecticut saying he's not going to show up to the State of the Union address. Like, so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There. It's a virtue signal for Democrats, except that most Americans don't care at the moment. I mean, they're so happy to actually see something happening. Besides all the stuff Trump is doing, the visual of a president who isn't falling, who isn't mumbling, who isn't lost when he speaks, who talks to the press multiple times every day. I mean, he's the most accessible president ever, as he was in the first term, except he's more disciplined this time and on his own message. The first term, he'd say something that screwed up the message he wanted to send out. But now he's smarter. He's got smarter team, more experienced team. And the Democrats are just literally dumbfounded. They're split over what to do about it. You know, there's the camp that thinks you ought to go anti-Trump, and Jamie Raskin suggested they do a third impeachment. Well, that works so well. All this lawfare stuff and the leaks, and I mean, he just blew them all out of the water, and he's here. So it hasn't worked for what, 9 years, 10 years? So maybe more of it will. I mean, come on, let's get with it. And there's a bunch, and Murphy is one of the leaders in that because he wants to be. He reminds me of Chris Dodd, you know, thinks that Connecticut matters. Connecticut's slogan is "The second C is silent." I mean, it's just, it's so, I lived there, so I know it's so irrelevant. But so he's gone. Remember Chris Dodd? He moved there. He moved to Iowa to live there, and he did in the caucuses. Anyway, so 2028 has a lot to do with it, but they're spinning their wheels. There is no leader except the new head of the DNC, who's comes from the Walz camp, and he was a staffer for Paul Wellstone, the what would you call him? Not a crazy activist. He was
those guys he was like a green. He was a Democrat, but he was
Yeah.
closer to being a
Yeah.
green, you know.
Yeah.
He
So
was another he was another uh university uh professor, I believe.
yeah, yeah. I just and then they had to bring Mondale back in, you know. So the Democrats, just a little bit of background. The Democrats typically turn to Congress for their leadership because they're central government people. Republicans tend to look to the states and even non-politicians like Trump, and they seem to prefer governors. And Democrats have not had much luck, especially with the Congress people. They think they're important because the world revolves around them. It's at least inside the District of Columbia, but to the rest of the world, it doesn't. And Trump, of course, blew that out of the water, but that doesn't change the swamp. And that's another reason why Trump is so strong uh, politically. He's so smart. I mean, who would who would you think in a field of 17 Republicans in 2015, who would you think would be the most likely to come out of it as a twice elected president of the United States? It was not the Fifth Avenue billionaire, right?
No, I mean, if you had to take a guess early in 2015, maybe been Jeb Bush.
Yeah, yeah, or Pataki or one of those guys. Uh, they would look for governors, and Trump has this uncanny ability to tap in and then take advantage of the visceral wants and needs of people who feel they have not been heard for a long time, Democrat and Republican, and that's his populist new coalition, and it's worked for him. And Democrats are dumbfounded because they had taken blacks and Hispanics and every other conceivable minority for granted for so long. Well, they're with us, but this time they weren't. And so there's a big reshaping going on, or I don't know how long it'll last. Remember in 1964, Lyndon Johnson absolutely blew Barry Goldwater out of the water. I
Yeah.
mean, it was an overwhelming election victory for Democrats. And there was talk then, I was around, there was talk then that, oh, can Republicans survive? Well, of course they're going to survive. Not only did they survive, but 4 years later, they were elected to the first of 5 terms out of the next 6. So if they these parties heal. That's why they've lasted for coming up on 200 years, is because they morph. And if you would have said 20 years ago that the party of country club people and rich businessmen would become the working class party, uh, led by led by a Republican, an adopted Republican president who owns 15 luxury golf courses.
Yeah.
I mean that it's just so the parties change, and I mean that's good for us long term. And so people shouldn't get too cocky about Democrats. I mean, they're down and out right now. They won't be forever, but it is kind of fun to watch Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer talk to themselves.
Yeah. Well, they're talking to themselves, all right, and that's all they're talking to, and that's part of the reason why Democrats had this confab right over the
Yeah,
weekend, which they said, I forget what it was. I read it at Politico, and say they're making suggestions like, be patriotic. It's like,
yeah,
really? Sort of a
yeah,
minimum
yeah, yeah.
minimum ask.
Adopt. Yeah, don't make fun of patriotism. Don't make fun of religion. I mean, it's just it's so pathetic and so superficial. I know. If we just look like we're religious, maybe that'll help. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because
It's sort of
if there's one thing about Americans who are religious, it's they're totally phony. Yeah.
There's this line that is attributed to Samuel Goldwyn, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it does seem to capture these
Yeah,
Samuel Goldwyn, which is sincerity is the key. Once you've learned to fake it, you're golden. You know?
that's right. That's why I heard that Groucho Marx said that, and
Yeah.
and then there's another one which is uh, an unknown movie producer after a long time ago whose movie bombed, and he said if people don't want to come, you can't stop them.
Yeah. I think that was. Or may have been Mayor, may have been Metro, may have been Louis.
I just love if they don't want to come, you can't stop them, and that's what the Democrats are doing. They're talking. Remember that great line, or was it in Saturday Night Live? Yeah, talk amongst yourselves, and
Yeah.
and that's what they're doing is talk amongst yourselves. And if they're in the group, they're already a Democrat. So anyway, it's fun to watch the spinning of the wheels. They're doing donuts in the street, and it's enjoyable at the moment. And I think it's one reason why Trump is acting so quickly is because they can't get their act together. I guess there have been not the Democratic Party, but Democrat supporters. There's more than 100 lawsuits, I think, in various stages. And so far, Trump has been pretty successful in working his way through them. That stalled him. Remember over the DACA stuff and the border wall in the first term.
Yeah.
So this time he's smarter. His guys are smarter and more experienced. They just come in and do their thing and stop me if you can. And there's so much going on. The Democrats have been unorganized. There's no leadership. They can't decide what to do, and what they talk about doing is useless.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we're gonna have to wrap it up because we have to wrap up.
Okay. All right.
Do you have a joke of the day?
I do. Oh, darn it. Every week I say, I'm going to use this one, and then I forget it. No, I don't.
Well, I have one for you, and we'll go on.
Okay. All right.
9-year-old Joey comes home from Sunday school, and his mother says, "Well, what did you learn today?" And he says, "Well, it's a great story. Our teacher told us how God sent Moses behind enemy lines on a rescue mission to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And then when he got to the Red Sea, he had his engineers build a pontoon bridge, and all the people walked across safely. And then he used his walkie-talkie to radio headquarters for reinforcements. They sent bombers to blow up the bridge, and all the Israelites were saved." And mother looks at him and goes, "Is that what your teacher taught you, Joey?" And he says, "Well, no, but if I told it the way she did, you'd never believe it."
Oh, that's one of the best ones yet.
Jokesoftheday.net. There are nuggets over there, and that one I actually when I read it, it actually did make me laugh out loud. And it's like, oh, I got to tell Andrew this one. This is a cute one.
That is a good one. That is a good one. Yep.
Andrew Malcolm, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, also the Prince of pontoon boats over the Red Sea.
Yeah, right.
Pontoon bridges, excuse me, over the Red Sea. We'll talk again next week, and looking forward to tonight's State of the Union address. So
I wouldn't use that word, but we'll be in touch and we can talk about it. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.